First, Mike Woodson brought IU back to relevance in the NCAA tournament. Now he may be bringing back the IU-Kentucky rivalry as well.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? It is Thursday, May 26th. This is Locked On Hoosiers, your daily one-stop shop for everything IU athletics. I'm your host, as always, Jacob Rude. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every single day. Look, Mike Woodson has done a lot of great things in Bloomington in his very short time there, barely over a year at this point, but one of the best things he could possibly do, something he hinted at on Wednesday, him and Tom Allen both had a Q&A at Huber Winery in Bloomington. Led to a lot of very interesting quotes. We're going to spend today's episode just looking at what they said, because by far the most interesting point is that Mike Woodson wants the rivalry with Kentucky back. He said, quote, "I'm going to stay on his heels," this being John Calipari. "I'm going to stay on his heels about trying to get the Kentucky-Indiana series back on the table. Over the years, that was a hell of a game. It might not be Bloomington-Lexington. However, we've got to get it done. I'll take it." All these quotes are going to be courtesy of Zach Osterman, who was live tweeting it, Indy Star beat writer, amazing follow, and I'm sure all of you guys know who he is. But this is big news, big potential. The biggest hang up for all this time has been the reluctance or resistance for Indiana to play the games on neutral courts. Basically, when Fred Glass was there, he said he wanted every 4-year Indiana University student to see IU in Kentucky play in Assembly Hall. I believe one of his latest proposals was playing a 4-year rotation of in Bloomington, in Indianapolis, in Lexington, and in another neutral location, presumably like a Louisville or something in Kentucky or something along those lines. But every 4 years, he wanted there to be a game in Bloomington. Tom Crean and Archie Miller seemed to hold similar ideas. There wasn't any pushback on that, but now Fred Glass isn't there anymore. Tom Crean isn't there anymore. Archie Miller isn't there anymore. And clearly the idea has changed for IU, and they want to play this game regardless of where it's played at. And that's always been what Kentucky and John Calipari has wanted, because the last time they played IU in the regular season in a game on one of the campuses was the Watt shot. You guys can't see it. It's a picture hanging up right there, right beside me. Everybody remembers where they were for that shot. Obviously, the storming of the court and things of that nature seemed to turn off John Calipari, and he has wanted neutral site games ever since. So that was the last time 11 years ago that these two teams played, and everybody's wanted the rivalry back. On Indiana's side, at least, seemingly John Calipari has put a pretty hard line in the sand that he's not going to go back to Bloomington and not going to go back to IU's campus. Honestly, I'll take it. I love the fact that the last time John Calipari came to Bloomington was the Watt shot. Like, I love that. So if he doesn't want to come back and he wants that to be his lasting legacy in Bloomington, like, yeah, great, awesome. I love it. But I also understood Fred Glass's perspective on that and wanting every 4-year IU student to see IU and Kentucky play or have the chance to, because it created memories. Like I was at the Watt shot game. I remember every detail about that game. There were 3 or 4 times where I thought, I've never heard a building louder than this leading up to the actual shot itself. So everybody remembers that. I remember even IU losing those games. I was in attendance when IU lost to John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins and Patrick Patterson in the game that Mo Creek broke out. I remember being at that game as well. So I understood why Fred Glass wanted that, but overall, I just want this game back because I remember being just as excited in 2016 when IU beat them in the NCAA tournament. And I love the fact that that's the last game that IU and Kentucky have played as well. It seems whether you want to talk the tournament, whether you want to talk regular season, IU has beaten them in each regard in the last two meetings. So I want this game back on the schedule, though. Put it in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, put it in the Yum Center in Louisville or whatever it's called now. I don't care where you put it. I just want this game back. And it's a great non-conference game. It's a rivalry game. It just makes sense. Like I never really understood why each side was drawing such hard lines in the sand on that matter. Even if I might have agreed with one of them, it felt like everybody enjoys watching this game played. So I'm glad that Mike Woodson is not only interested in bringing it back, but is willing to kind of compromise and do what John Calipari and uh, Kentucky want in regards to playing at neutral sites, because who doesn't love watching that matchup? Even the colors go well together, like in a competing matchup, the red against the blue, like it's such a great rivalry that is one of my favorites, and I want it back. So hopefully this is something that Mike Woodson, John Calipari, the ADs, Scott Dolson, I don't know Kentucky's AD offhand, those guys can all get together, iron something out, and get this game back on the schedule, because I think that would make just about not only IU and UK fans happy, but college basketball fans happy, because that's one of the kind of true blood rivalries and one of the lasting rivalries. Mike Woodson played in that game. He played Kentucky 4 times back in the 70s and 80s. He lost to him 3 times, but he played in those games. The series dates back to the 60s. So, I mean, bring it back and compromise, and maybe after a couple seasons of playing the game, you're able to renegotiate and bring the games back to campus. But just get this game back on the schedule and figure out some of the other details later. That wasn't the only thing Mike Woodson talked about. He gave some more scheduling updates and hints and things of that nature. Also talked a little bit about Trace Jackson Davis and his jump shot, and that was the big talking point from Trace. We'll look at the rest of his comments here in a moment. First, though, guys, we've been asking and Built delivered. Built granola bars are here. Built granola bars come in 3 unbelievable flavors: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. Want to try all 3 flavors? You can get a mixed box at built.com right now. These are so different from the bars and the puffs. Built granola bars are loaded with granola. It's the perfect combination of crunch and chewiness, but it's just like bars and puffs. These babies are packed with protein, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Of course they are. 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar. Built granola bars will change your world. Built has cracked the code to better granola. They're the perfect healthy snack to pack in your lunch, take on the road, or just eat as a snack. And they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, provides tons of health benefits. So if you've been waiting for a healthy and delicious granola bar to hit the market, this is your time. Head to built.com right now to get the Built granola bars, all 3 delicious flavors to try. That was chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, white chocolate berry. Don't miss out. You got to get yours today. Go to built.com to get Built granola bars now. Once you're there, once you get everything into your cart, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thanks for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Mike Woodson talked a couple other little scheduling tidbits. He mentioned that he talked to Kenny Payne over at Louisville about setting something up in 2 years, which Kenny Payne, obviously the new head coach at Louisville, in 2 years, probably it's not a coincidence that is when the end of the Kansas games would be. I think that would probably be something that would fill in for those Kansas games. IU will play at Kansas this year, home against Kansas in 2023. So 2024 would be when we're looking at. Makes sense that he would want something to go in there. So maybe that's your next kind of big rivalry game. How fun would it be to play Louisville and Kentucky in the same season? I'm sure it's happened before, but it's been a while. I don't remember it happening in quite some time. Woodson also more or less confirmed that IU would be in the Gavitt games. That's something we talked about. I didn't realize IU had committed to play 5 times in 7 years. I had just read the general agreements for the rest of the Big Ten. The agreements with the Gavitt games are all over the place, and people have played not a lot of games in it, and other teams have. But IU is one of them that's going to play 5 times in 7 years. They'd played 4 and 6 before this year, so it was kind of a given, I guess, that they're going to be in the Gavitt games. It's probably going to be on the road since they played St. John's at home this year in it. There's a number of teams that could be really interesting. Villanova is probably going to be one of the best teams they could play. Lord, UNC or Duke, Villanova, Kansas, and Arizona on the schedule would be, whew, boy. UConn is a team we talked about that has a history playing against IU. Xavier and Butler, obviously, geographically would be interesting. We've spoken about Butler and Thad Matta and whether that would be something that could lead to a series between the two. I don't know the last time I certainly don't remember the last time IU played at Hinkle Fieldhouse. That'd be a cool thing to see, but I don't know how much say Indiana has and who they play in the Gavitt games. IU is going to be a high-profile team, so they're going to put them in a high-profile game. Locally, the Butler game would draw a ton of attention. Nationally, UConn or Villanova, especially the latter, would draw a lot of attention. I don't know how much IU wants to challenge this team, but you could hardly get tougher than whichever ACC opponent they're going to get, Villanova, Kansas, and Arizona. That would be a tested team. He also more or less confirmed IU would be playing Arizona. Officially, that hasn't been confirmed, but he said, quote, Kansas and Arizona are 2 great teams that have been competing when it's all said and done, so we'll see what we're made of when we face them. So you can pretty much mark those 2 down, Kansas and Arizona. He said he didn't know who the ACC game was going to be yet. Again, IU is as high profile as it's going to come in the Big Ten, along with probably Michigan next season. So IU and Michigan are going to play UNC and Duke. I would bet a good amount of money on it. What combination they play, I'm not sure, but I would bet that those are going to be your 2 high-profile matchups next season. So IU is going to be tested next year in ways that they certainly were not in non-conference play this year. So there's not going to be any questions heading into conference play about what IU is going to be because, boy, they are going to find out what they are going to be this season. He talked about, Mike Woodson about Trace's jumper. Quote, he's got to shoot the basketball and feel good about shooting the basketball. He's going to make some. He's going to miss some. The general sentiment being that Trace is going to fail, but he is going to overall kind of improve his game if he starts taking the jumpers. That's a mindset thing that maybe isn't talked about enough. Around the rim, Trace is, you saw last season he was nearly a 60% shooter around the rim last season, 58.9. So it's a big difference. He's never shot worse than 51% around the rim. So half of his shots go in. It's going to be a lot different when you step out and only a third of your shots go in. Maybe hopefully a little bit more than that, but that's what we're looking at roughly. So it's going to feel like he's not executing as well maybe, but overall it's more efficient. I'm sure people hate hearing about analytics, but analytically a three-pointer is a better shot than a mid-range jumper. We'll see what that mindset is for him, but overall he does need to step out and take some jumpers. They're not going to go in at the same rate. I would love for him to shoot 58% from the three-point line. Don't think it's going to happen, but it's going to be a big challenge for him. The amount that Trace and Mike Woodson are talking about it, is already more. They talked about it a lot last offseason. They've talked about it way more this offseason. So that is encouraging because it really means both are focused on it. So hopefully they're able to intertwine that into the offense and get him shooting more three-pointers, because it just adds another element to his game, to IU's offense, makes it a lot easier to do things. If he's a legitimate pick and pop threat, suddenly Race Thompson isn't so kind of out of position or in awkward spots. We saw a lot last year. He kind of moved out to the corner. If there's the threat that Trace could pick and pop, then you can move Race into that dunker spot, and the paint isn't as crowded as much anymore. You have more options. Defenses have to be aware of more guys. That's more opportunity for them to mess up and somebody to be open. So it creates a lot more weapons and a lot more dynamism to IU's offense. It becomes more, there's more threats on the floor. So hopefully, knock on wood, we see more of that. I'm sure that's not the last time we're going to discuss Trace shooting jumpers. Tom Allen was also at this Q&A, I guess. He had some really interesting comments about Big Ten football scheduling, which we've talked about. He provided some kind of insight from the coaches themselves as to what way he thinks things are trending for divisions in the Big Ten. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. So obviously, with the NCAA ruling last week, divisions are almost certainly going to be gone in college football. If you want kind of a deeper dive on the topic and whatnot, we discussed it on last week's episode. I believe last Friday we talked about Big Ten and the divisions and how they're finally going to be gone, it seems like. And that's what Tom Allen said. He thinks that kind of momentum is building toward divisions being gone in the Big Ten. Quote, at the end of the day, you just want equitable schedules. It's not surprising he says that, because IU has not had equitable schedules. Compare IU's schedule last season to probably anybody in the Big Ten. And IU had a tougher schedule, and that's just the nature of teams in the Big Ten East. It's not just IU, it's Rutgers, it's Maryland, even the bigger teams, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. I'm sure those guys don't love the fact that they have to play Ohio State. They have to play each other basically every single year. There's no off game. Ohio State might not mind it because they need those wins to be in the national championship conversation, but the rest of the teams typically aren't. I'm sure that they wouldn't mind one easier game mixed in there, but equitable schedules seems to be the thing that makes the most sense, especially for a lot of the bottom feeding teams in the Big Ten East, because that's realistically what IU has been more than not, is a team at the bottom. And I'm sure they're tired of playing these games. I'm tired of watching IU lose to Ohio State. There's few things I want more than IU football beating Ohio State. And as much as I want it, it hasn't really come close except for a few handful of times, but it makes those losses all the more frustrating. In terms of what equitable schedules look like, Allen said that he could see 9-game conference seasons staying. He mentioned the most sensible approach he thought was keeping 2 permanent opponents on the schedule and rotating the other 7 games so that every 4-year player visits a campus or every campus at some point in their career. The idea is right. I don't know logistically. It's a lot harder to do only 2 opponents staying every year and rotating the other 11 games than it is the 3-5-5 system we talked about, because then it is really simple. And the problem there, though, is that is not a 9-game schedule in the Big Ten. So that could be why he is offering up the 2 opponents and 7 other games kind of system. I'm not sure what the Big Ten is going to do. They never necessarily do things the easy way. So as much sense as the 3-5-5 system makes, they apparently want 9 league games. So maybe it is 3-5-5 and they do this partnership with the Pac-12 and the ACC, and there's your other game, and that's where the sacrifice is. Who really knows? All I know is that I want the Big Ten East to be done with. Like, I'm tired of it. Tired of playing those games. Just end it. The quicker, the better. I would be stunned if they do it this season. I'm almost certain that they won't, because the schedules are already kind of written in maybe not stone, but they've been released. So they're not going to do it this year. But it'd be awesome if this was the last year of the Big Ten East. Hopefully, the Big Ten doesn't drag its feet, because I think I speak for all IU fans and probably most Rutgers and Maryland's fans that they're tired of being the team beaten up every year. Thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. We'll be back tomorrow with an exciting show with John Garcia, the college football recruiting specialist for the Locked On Network. We're going to talk Dave McCullough. We're going to talk Deshaun McCullough. We're going to talk the 2022 recruiting class, maybe some hidden gems mixed in there. Now, make your second listen the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Rafael Barlow, Richard Stayman, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin give fans an in-depth look into the biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and, of course, big boards. Follow Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, at @LO_Hoosiers. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating and review. Most importantly, though, guys, have a tremendous Thursday, and LEO.